Football is often sold as a game of tactics and technique, but long before the first pass is played and long before the whistle cuts through the air, the real battle has already begun, inside press rooms, corridors, touchlines, and most importantly, inside the minds of elite managers, where psychological warfare is not an accident, but a carefully rehearsed art form, perfected over decades by the sharpest footballing intellects in the modern game. And nowhere is this more evident than in the subtle mental duels between managers like Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp, and Carlo Ancelotti, who understand that winning football matches is not only about controlling space on the pitch, but about controlling belief, doubt, fear, confidence, and perception in their opponents. Because at the highest level, every manager knows that if you can make your rival hesitate, second-guess, or feel emotionally compromised, you have already gained an advantage before the ball is even placed on the center spot. And this is the invisible battlefield where elite coaches operate, speaking in coded language, offering misleading praise, applying pressure through calm indifference or exaggerated confidence, and shaping narratives that quietly influence referees, players, fans, and the footballing world itself in ways that rarely appear on tactical boards, but repeatedly decide the outcomes of season-defining matches. Because psychological warfare in football is not about shouting louder or showing aggression. It is about precision timing and understanding human behavior at an elite level. And Pep Guardiola, perhaps more than anyone, has mastered the art of appearing vulnerable while remaining completely in control, often downplaying his own team before big games, praising opponents excessively, highlighting their strengths, and subtly planting the idea that his own side is the underdog, not because he believes it, but because he understands that pressure changes behavior. Guardiola knows that when an opponent feels favored, they take risks, they overthink, and they abandon their natural game. And when his own players feel underestimated, they sharpen their focus and channel that slight into intensity and discipline. And this mental framing begins days before kickoff, during interviews where Pep carefully chooses words that sound honest but are strategically engineered to shift emotional weight onto the other bench. And this approach becomes even more powerful when combined with his tactical unpredictability, because uncertainty is a psychological weapon in itself. When rival coaches do not know what system Guardiola will use, which fullback will invert, which midfielder will become a false winger, or which defender will step into midfield, it creates restless preparation sessions where clarity is replaced by doubt, and doubt is the enemy of execution. And Guardiola understands that fear of the unknown forces conservative decisions, slowing reactions, and disrupting instinctive play. And while Pep weaponizes uncertainty, Jurgen Klopp uses emotion as his battlefield, transforming energy, belief, and collective identity into psychological pressure that overwhelms opponents. Klopp's greatest strength is not only his gegenpressing system, but his ability to convince players, fans, and the media that they are part of something larger than tactics, something emotional, something unstoppable. And this emotional momentum becomes psychological warfare because teams facing Klopp's sides often feel suffocated before kickoff, knowing they will be hunted, chased, and tested physically and mentally for 90 minutes. And Klopp feeds this perception with carefully crafted press conference performances where he oscillates between humor, humility, and defiance, presenting his team as relentless fighters who thrive under adversity. And by doing so, he places psychological strain on opponents who know that any lapse in concentration will be punished instantly. And Klopp's use of emotional language, his gestures on the touchline, his interactions with the crowd are not spontaneous. They are tools designed to raise his team's emotional ceiling while raising anxiety levels on the opposing bench. And then there is Carlo Ancelotti, the silent assassin of psychological warfare, who operates not through noise or unpredictability, but through calm authority and experience. Ancelotti understands that serenity can be intimidating because it communicates absolute confidence and control. And when rivals see him unshaken, unfazed, and composed even in the biggest Champions League nights, it sends a message that he has seen everything before and that nothing they attempt will surprise him. And this psychological calm extends to his players, who often speak about how Ancelotti makes them feel trusted, empowered, and relaxed. And relaxed players make better decisions under pressure, and that becomes psychological warfare because opponents sense that no amount of chaos will rattle them. And Ancelotti reinforces this by rarely engaging in mind games publicly, instead allowing his silence to speak volumes, creating a vacuum that others fill with their own insecurity and speculation. And these contrasting psychological styles collide most dramatically in high-stakes encounters, where managers are not only battling systems, but belief structures, and media narratives play a crucial role in this invisible war, because elite coaches understand that journalists are not just observers, they are amplifiers, and every quote, every headline, every viral clip shapes public perception, which in turn affects referees, players, and fans. And Guardiola, Klopp, and Ancelotti all manipulate this ecosystem differently. Pep uses complexity and philosophical language to appear misunderstood and underestimated. Klopp uses emotional authenticity to rally support and deflect criticism, while Ancelotti uses brevity and charm to disarm tension and avoid scrutiny. And these media strategies are not accidental because footballers read headlines, watch interviews, and absorb the emotional temperature surrounding matches. And when a manager successfully frames a narrative of injustice, adversity, or inevitability, it influences how players approach duels, tackles, and moments of pressure. And referees are not immune either, because subconscious bias can be shaped by repeated narratives of dominance, victimhood, or discipline. And elite managers know this and feed narratives accordingly, planting seeds days or even weeks before key matches. And psychological warfare extends beyond words into rituals, routines, and behavioral cues, like Guardiola obsessively controlling details from warm-ups to tunnel behavior, creating an atmosphere of intense focus that opponents feel when they enter the stadium, or Klopp deliberately fostering chaos and noise to disrupt opponent communication, and Ancelotti's relaxed demeanor that lowers tension and invites mistakes, and even small gestures like eye contact, handshakes, body language, and touchline positioning become signals read and interpreted by players, because footballers are acutely sensitive to emotional cues, and when they sense doubt, arrogance, fear, or calm, it affects decision-making, and elite managers exploit this awareness with surgical precision. And tactical bluffs are a critical weapon in psychological warfare because misleading lineups, false injury doubts, and unexpected formations force opponents into reactive preparation, and Guardiola has elevated this to an art form, often experimenting in low-stakes matches not to test ideas, but to plant false expectations so that when the real battle arrives, opponents prepare for ghosts, while Klopp occasionally hints at rotation or fatigue to lure rivals into underestimating intensity, and Ancelotti masterfully disguises simplicity as weakness, allowing opponents to believe they can dominate before punishing them with ruthless efficiency. And these bluffs work because preparation time is limited and uncertainty creates mental overload, and when players are overloaded mentally, they hesitate, and hesitation at elite level is fatal. And this mental warfare reaches its peak in knockout competitions where margins are microscopic and belief becomes decisive. And managers understand that belief can be manufactured, undermined, or stolen. And moments like Guardiola's teams dominating possession before delivering sudden vertical attacks, or Klopp's sides scoring early to confirm fears, or Ancelotti's teams absorbing pressure only to strike late are not only tactical outcomes, but psychological payoffs from days of mental conditioning. And this is why some teams repeatedly collapse against certain managers, because psychological scars accumulate over time, and past defeats create mental blocks that elite coaches exploit by reminding opponents of history through subtle comments or tactical setups that mirror previous nightmares. And this accumulation of psychological dominance is why certain rivalries become one-sided despite apparent parity on paper, because football is played by humans, not robots, and humans carry memory, emotion, and fear into competition, and elite managers are masters of exploiting that reality. And the most fascinating aspect of this psychological warfare is that it often operates invisibly, not noticed by casual viewers who focus on formations and goals, while the real game unfolds in glances, pauses, tones, and narratives, shaping how 90 minutes will unfold. And when managers speak after matches, praising opponents, criticizing referees, or deflecting blame, they are not just reacting, they are setting the stage for the next encounter, planting new psychological seeds. And elite managers think in cycles, not matches, understanding that psychological advantage compounds over time. And when you control belief, you control outcomes. And this is why football at the highest level is as much a psychological chess match as it is a physical contest. Because when tactics cancel each other out and skill levels converge, the deciding factor becomes who thinks clearer under pressure, who believes deeper in the plan, and who has been mentally prepared to suffer, adapt, and strike. And that preparation begins days before kickoff, in the mind games of management, where elite coaches wage silent wars, shaping reality itself. And by the time the whistle blows, the outcome is often already leaning in favor of the manager who won the psychological battle before a single ball was placed.